Hello, everyone, and welcome to Get More Done, going from brainstorming to result. My name is Shelley Hayduck, and I'm co-hosting today's event with Matt Chayton, our Director of Customer Solutions.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today.
Today's event is somewhat two-pronged. There's several aspects to the brain that make this a very nice tool for going from ideas to results. Being a visualization and a sort of knowledge capture tool, the brain is wonderful for brainstorming. We have all these wonderful applications where you can brainstorm ideas, get it all out into one system. But then beyond that, the brain is also a very powerful information management system. So once you've actually done some brainstorming, captured a few cool ideas, you can then use the brain to continue to then execute on those ideas. So we're not just it's not just a more dynamic whiteboard. It's that, but it's a complete system from going from thoughts to results, hence the name of today's session. So I'm going to go get started. I just want to verify, Matt, if you can see my screen okay.
Yes, it looks great.
Okay, very good. So this particular brain is a template brain, and I want to make everyone aware that this is a brain that is a resource to you. I'm presenting in the Brain 8 today, and actually if you go up to File and you select New Brain, which you can do right now, this is our brainstorming brain. So if you want to go in there and type in, December webinar, the Brain webinar, and check brainstorming, you will actually have this brain appear, and you can click along with me, or you can just, sit back and relax. You can also get to this brain if you ever want to import it from Import, and it is also in Template Brain section. So just to let you know, very relevant template for today's session, and we're going to go ahead and pop through it. So we're first going to go ahead and talk a little bit about brainstorming. And I would be remiss if I did not mention Alex Osborne, who is the father of brainstorming. He wrote a book called Applied Imagination, Principles and Procedures for Creative Problem Solving. So these procedures are pretty good. So today's session isn't just going to be about how to use the brain, but a little bit of a methodology for you to help you formulate your own idea generation, as well as some methodology on time management and getting things done. So he came up with some very interesting rules. Now, if you are brainstorming in the brain, you can do this as an individual on your desktop. You can also, it's great if you're in a meeting, throw your brain up on the projection screen. If you have Team Brain, you can actually do this collaboratively from desktop to desktop. So these rules can apply to a group or to an individual. So as I start brainstorming, what I want to do is I'm going to pick a topic. I'm going to start that topic, create a thought for that topic in my brain, but it's very important the first phase, which might be sounding a little counterintuitive to most people, if you focus on the quantity of ideas. So you just want to generate a bunch of ideas. And this is where the number two, Alex Osborne's point, is very important, to withhold criticism. So now is not the time to, Matt, we don't have budget for this, or what am I thinking? There's no way I'm going to pay off my mortgage in, 5 years. Withholding criticism on yourself, which is sometimes the hardest thing to do. This is where you become very liberal with anything that goes in your brain. There will be time for pruning and weighting different ideas, and we will get to that. But when you're first brainstorming, that is not the time. You actually want to, as number 3 says, welcome the unusual ideas, as well as combine and improve ideas. This is where we can get into connecting different thoughts. So that's the way that works in terms of just starting out with an idea and then building it in your brain. Now, the other thing that's kind of cool is there's no limits to the number of thoughts or ideas that you can actually have in your brain. Your brain can be a brain of 20 thoughts, just on a specific brainstorming session you might have done in a meeting, or it can be, as Jerry Mikulski's brain is, a 300,000 thought brain, where you've got things from several decades that you're either incubating as ideas, you've executed on, or you're executing on in the present. So one brain or many, you can do it either way. We're happy to discuss which scenario is relevant for each type of application you're working on. And really what the brain will enable you to do is get into what we call goal-directed thinking. So once you've brainstormed, you want to decide on a particular project that you want to do. So now, once you've created all those ideas, you actually want to sort of move into defining what success looks like. So you might have, for instance, a marketing project, okay, and that might be something that you're working on. So you've had a branding session where you've come up with all your ideas, and now it's time to actually work in this brain. So you can attach Word documents, you can attach budget. If you're working on a new marketing plan, I'm just going to create a new thought here for marketing plan 2017. I'm going to add that, and now from there I can go ahead and I can add any type of resources. So if this is a document I'm starting, I'm going to right-click on this thought, and I'm going to add an attachment. I'll make that a document. I can actually start working in the document. So my marketing plan, and I can go ahead and save this, and that gets saved back into the brain, and now I've got this marketing plan in the brain. And this can be related to something else. If I want to relate this to maybe my lessons learned or anything that I've done, maybe I'm relating this back to Alex Osborne's rules, because we're doing a lot of brainstorming. So I'm going to create a connection there. So now I'm making connections. So now I've made a connection from Alex Osborne to the marketing plan. So now you can see this connection being made really nicely, and I can continue to build what I need to do in this brain, or I can continue to brainstorm. So for my 2017 marketing plan, there might be a couple ideas. I might want to invest in advertising as a possibility. I might just want to do a few more trade shows. And then finally, I might want to do a customer conference. So I've got all these things now that were part of my plan as potential ideas. And from there, I can continue to brainstorm, or I can actually start to weight these ideas by thinking about doing research on each particular idea. So for instance, investing in advertising, that's something I don't know a lot about. So I'm actually going to go ahead and use the brain's built-in search web feature, which is F4, to go out and get some information on how to invest in advertising, what the best thing is to do. So I've got a few different things. So there's an interesting article here on Facebook ads, for instance, on a site. So I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop this URL. And so now what I'm doing is I'm moving from brainstorming to actually building a knowledge base, for execution and reference. So I'm going to drag from the browser address window and drop this under investing in advertising. And I've got a link to this particular site, and it gives me the favicon. Now here, this is where I get into notes. So I can actually look and go ahead, and I'll just say 6 reasons to invest in Facebook. So I've got that link there. I can actually do a couple things here. If I actually even want to copy this image as a reference and paste it as a thought icon, just to give me a little bit more inspiration here, now I've got that appearing as well. And maybe I want to look into advertising on, let's just say, Google. So now I've got to create a thought for that. And again, I'm just going to go up. I don't know too much about that either. I'm learning in my brain. The brain is a great learning tool. So here's something on creating ads for your Google account. So I'm simply going to go ahead and drag and drop that in the brain about Google ads. And a couple more things here. There's another article on why we shouldn't do this. So I'm haven't quite decided. So some pros and some cons. So here we go, why we shouldn't invest. So there's a pro and a con. And in fact, I could actually go ahead and create thought types and icons for each of these. Each thought has its own icon, so if I want to go ahead and not use the favicon that comes with this, if I want to go ahead and add an icon, I can select an icon. And this is going to be sort of a, let's go into the symbols section here. And I'm going to put an X by this because that's kind of why I don't want to invest. And then in this case, I'm going to go back and select an icon here and go into symbols as well. I do like that section there. And in this case, I'm going to use a checkbox. So now you can see, and I can actually, in some brains, I can actually create thought types for pro and con, but advertising in Google, I might actually give that a check question mark itself. So let's go ahead and do that. Looking for a question mark. Here we are. And so now you can see that this part of my brain, I have advertising. I've got Facebook. You know, maybe we've worked that out. Google, we're still not sure on. So I've got the checkbox, and I've got the pro and the con right there. So it's very easy. The other thing I can do is I'm still, you know, trying to figure out what is I'm going to do. I'm going to right-click and create a pin to this thought. So now, regardless of where I am in the brain, if I'm thinking about my marketing project, I have that thought pinned to the top of my screen so I can really think about and continue to research whether we're going to invest in Google. So that's the way goal-directed thinking works. Let's just go ahead and go through a few more of these steps. So that takes us to our next step, which is defining obstacles. So in your brain, as we move from ideas, generating ideas, to now moving into a results phase, there are a couple things you can do to go from thought to action, and this is what we've defined here in the brain as goal-directed thinking. And you can use the brain to visualize each one of these steps from idea to all the way to a project's completion. So defining success, that can be part of brainstorming, or once you've done some brainstorming, you can define what you actually do want to work on. And then number 2 is your obstacles. So this might sound counterproductive, but this is where we get into risk management. We have very large shipping companies, supply chain management companies, global utility companies that actually have full brains on risk management. It sounds a little negative, but everything that can go wrong, but just so you're prepared, or IT management loves this for contingency mapping. So if my server goes down in San Diego, what applications are affected, where can I reroute things, and who do I contact? You know, boom, 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 and triangulating visually. It's quite wonderful. In fact, it reminds me of an application, one of our most high-profile applications is that's an old Best Thinker or Big Thinker webinar by Christopher David, former CTO of Arlington, Virginia, who actually had a contingency map that he used when they had the September 11th attacks on the Pentagon for IT management. So this can be very interesting. And then, of course, it could be as simple as, okay, you know, we've missed our flights for Christmas. What do we do then? Okay, so very large-scale type brains to very personal brains, and all of it is important and relevant. So in this case, if I'm talking about my marketing budget, some obstacles might be getting management approval. Also just objections to why we even need to move forward. And then maybe even if I have management approval, I have to go around and look for funding from other departments and maybe pull some stuff away from other projects. So these are all things I need to work on. These are all obstacles. And then we get into the project planning phase. This is where, you know, in terms of methodologies, the David Allen Getting Things Done, GTD methodology comes in, and we're going to talk a little bit about that specifically. And that's where you can list your action items. What the brain offers beyond a project management sort of project file is checks and balances that don't impede results. So it's a little bit more of a creative view of your projects. This is fabulous for people in creative industries who think going to use Microsoft Project is like going to the dentist. And then conversely, for those of you that are maybe too linear in your approach and always doing things a certain way, the Brain offers a new perspective. So whether you're sort of the creative disorganized or the hyper-organized, I think both camps can find the Brain quite productive and quite meaningful in this project management phase. There are different project planning methodologies that you can map out as your thoughts. One of them that we can talk about is the David Allen GTD Natural Planning Model, where he asks all people who use his methodology when they're doing a project to do purpose, mission, to do brainstorming. So in this case, David Allen is using brainstorming to come up with a plan to get the mission done. So brainstorming doesn't necessarily, I've been talking about it in terms of happening at the beginning of your project. Well, you know, we're creative throughout, so you'll have sort of clusters of brainstorming within your brain as it moves through the project, and that's why it's so great to visualize everything as thoughts, so these ideas keep flowing as you're executing. So he's got the GTD brainstorming, and then organizing ideas and next steps. And this is part of a general methodology for David Allen. And one of the things I love about the Brain, and this thought in particular illustrates this quite nicely, is that you can have one piece of information effectively located under multiple categories. So here, I'm thinking about GTD Natural Planning Model in my own methodology that I created under goal-directed thinking. But really, let's give credit to where credit's due. This is a GTD methodology that relates to David Allen. So now I've gone up another branch, and I have this one piece, the GTD Natural Planning Project Model, under two different categories. So the Brain enables me to create a multi-dimensional categorization structure. Unlike your file folder system, I don't have to choose, do I want my planning project methodology in folder A or folder B, or do I make a shortcut and then I can't see the connection? With the Brain, it can really be linked to anything. In fact, if we go ahead, and I might want to link this to my Google advertising idea, because this is something where I'll take advantage of this model here as well. So now I've made several connections, and as easy as I've connected something, I can also undo it when I'm done the project, and I want to keep this clean. I select unlink, still in my Brain, but this area is looking quite good. So now we're traversing up to GTD. So you see we're moving through this content. We started in sort of a linear way. Now we're sort of taking a different route. We're taking a turn to the right here and going into GTD methodology. So here, basically, the whole idea and premise for David Allen's Getting Things Done is to get ideas out of your head and into a trusted system. So in our case, the trusted system is the Brain, and we have a number of different resources for using GTD in the Brain. In fact, we actually have David Allen did a webinar with us. Happy to send that link out for those of you that are really into this kind of stuff. But for those of you that aren't and have no idea who David Allen is, that's perfectly fine as well. We're just going to go through the basics that are applicable for today's topic. So the whole idea of getting it out into a trusted system with David Allen, this could be a notebook. Though hopefully you're a little bit more technologically savvy than that. Or in this case, it's our Brain, right? So it's like you're jotting down your ideas in the Brain with the thoughts and with the Brain's notes and capturing all that. Now the premise here is sometimes we have far too many commitments. So what we need to do and stuff to do is we need to collect, process, and organize and review all these things we have to do, and stuff can either be done or deferred. So this is a way of sort of visualizing all your responsibilities. And there are various ways to do that. You can do your responsibilities as thoughts. You can actually use the notes area, and Matt's going to cover check boxes and things like that in notes. And there's a nice concept that David Allen talks about that I like to refer to, and it's called horizons of focus. And you know, and really, you could almost dub the Brain a vehicle for a horizon of focus, because every time I click on a thought, it's bringing that idea into central focus, and I get that horizon of information all around it. Now, what he means in his case for his methodologies, he talks about different altitudes of operation. all the way from runway, which is just basically stuff from I got to pick up the kids, I got to, make a call to my client, just very, very straightforward to-do list, all the way to your 50,000-foot life goals as well. And the other thing that he notes, which is quite clever as well, is you have to be careful with runway. And this webinar is not also just about helping you get it done, but it's getting things done means prioritizing, because in this day and age, especially, dare I say, with those holidays looming over our heads, we tend to take on too many projects, too many commitments. And what happens is things start to impede us, they start to drive us, rather than us taking control of our daily routine in life. These projects and commitments start to take control of us. And then what can happen, the risk there, just like with any business project, is you're on runway. Runway level is like a flight. You're on the runway. So you're just focusing on all these little to-dos, calling Zoom, meeting here, meeting there, this kind of thing. And then you never get your project off the ground. You never get that 10,000-foot view. You never elevate yourself. So you're going to use the brain to capture all your runway tasks, but that will enable you to see the bigger picture, whether it's your current projects, you can list under your 10,000-foot view, or your areas of responsibility in life, or just your vision. So 30,000-foot horizon of focus for David Allen are only 1 to 2 year goals. You can map those out in your brain. And then 40,000, 3 to 5, and then 50,000-foot life goals. What do I want out of life? What kind of person do I want to be? Let's not lose sight of that, and let's not stay on the runway. You need the runway to go places, but you also need to elevate yourself to your higher goals. So this area, horizons of focus, use it. Even copy and paste these thoughts into your own personal brain. Grab this brain as a template. Use it. You're going to love it. It's a fabulous thing to do for year end. Email us. Tell us what you did. We're very interested in knowing that. So that's kind of the methodology, the framework for you from going from thoughts to results. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to jump into a brain so you can see a few more practical examples of this type of methodology utilized in a larger brain with varying projects. And then Matt's going to also jump into some features both in the Brain 8 and the Brain 9 that are really specific for going from brainstorming to results also. So I'm just going to go into my brain. And Matt, real quick, is there anything in the Q&A panel I should cover or know about before I jump into my brain example?
No, we're doing good. A couple of people had interests in the links, so I shared those to www.thebrain.com/GTD, and that's some great links over to the Getting Things Done and recordings with David Allen. And yeah, looking forward to seeing your brain.
All right, so and some of you probably know if you've sat in on other webinars, there are different approaches to creating a brain. I like to have sort of the one brain for everything, where I've got sort of my business section in my brain as well as my personal section, so I can sort of move very quickly from, Red Cross might call, so I've got a client, so boom, I'm just clicking on that piece of information and I'm right there. And then just as easily, I think you saw I had my Virgin Islands vacation, wow, which I'm not doing this year, and I can quickly move to that area also, so I can weave. So it's up to you whether you create a single brain for everything or have multiple brains. If you are doing a lot of collaboration, you probably want to have a topic-specific brain that you then sync and share. If you are juggling a lot of projects, you might want to go ahead and have that single brain so you can just zoom very quickly. And then if you do have multiple brains, you can have brain buttons up here for all your different brains as well. So let's dive into just a little bit of my GTD section. So I've got my personal area and I've got my business area. And now as you can see, I've mapped out different departments, but I also have that David Allen thought, active projects, and I use a combination of my own project methodology and a hybrid David Allen. And I've got what that's called in his methodology is the 10,000-foot view of projects. So that's there. Now that's under business, so I can get to it quickly, and that's also under my horizon of focus. Now you'll notice these aren't in order. I have a thought type here for current projects, and you'll start to see things, different coloring and different tags on things. This is to help me contextualize the projects that I'm working on. So linked to my active projects, I have a section called Meeting Management. And I love meeting management because it's part of kind of getting things done, but it's also an area where you got to be careful and get bogged down on, and it's also where you're going to come back and reconvene with everyone as a group to say, okay, who's done what? So this is where action items kind of reign supreme, and areas of responsibility need to be mapped out. So when I have a meeting, and you can see this is in my meeting management, this is under marketing and IT are involved, and web design, I actually have different thought types for the thought. So I actually will create a thought in my brain for this meeting. Now, some of you might just want to use the notes section. That's fine. In this case, because there's so many big projects talked about, I'm talking about very high-level meetings here. I have thought types, so my action items appear in purple. Then I have key goals appearing in that sort of golden color with this icon. An action item has the question mark. Now, let's say the event agenda becomes my action item. I simply right-click, and I select to create a thought type. Now, I can go ahead and set a new thought type, or in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and select my action item, okay? And so now that becomes my action item, and then the e-commerce blog topic as well. Let me just go ahead and thought type that as my action item. So now I've got three things here appearing as my action item. The other stuff is not as relevant, and you know, I can go, I have a notes area here. I'm just going to make my thoughts a little smaller so I can take notes. And if something is done or is not my action item anymore, let's say we've already hired that web design firm, I can just come in here again and change the type. I'm going to untype that so it's no longer, and I can even just change this link to the web design firm or delete it altogether. So you can see how things can change and how things can evolve. Now you'll notice that certain thoughts also have tags here. So if I'm trying to weight different decisions, like for instance our event agenda, I can contextualize it. Now you can think of a tag as almost fields in a database. So it's not something I want as a thought, but I'm going to tag this as a critical writing project and something that actually in terms of time frame is 2 months. Now I'm displaying my thought tags here so everyone can see them. There's also an option in properties to go ahead and hide those tags if you don't want to see them. Now, the cool thing about thought typing and tagging your different projects and action items and thoughts in the brain is you can then gather things that you don't necessarily want connected in one space. So, for instance, everything that's a critical writing project, I'm going to click on that tag, and here's everything that's tagged. I have a Red Cross case study, a web conferencing document I'm working on, an employee handbook. Oh, that's getting kind of old. And, of course, that event agenda that was in my other area. And so from there, I can go ahead and, you know, see that this is under Red Cross, that client that I mentioned earlier. So, and, of course, I can go ahead and unlink things. So if this particular case study is done and it's no longer a critical writing project, I'm going to uncheck it. And now I don't even need to even worry so much about cost too, so I can go ahead and unlink that as well. So just uncheck that. And so now I have no tags on this thought. Or, you know, I can go ahead and if I need to work on this and I have a tag for evolving further. So this is really great for aggregating ideas on a moment's notice and just really interesting things. So I have an @ symbol. So if I want to get to a particular tag real quick in my search box, I can just hit the @ and these are all my tags that pop up. And I particularly love when talking to the CEO because, you know, you have a million different things if you're working with a lot of VIPs that you want to remember when that person calls or they walk into your office. Go ahead and hit that tag and boom, you're ready to kind of go through everything all at once. So that's the way tags can be helpful in terms of, you know, working to get things done and going from ideas to actions, because now all my ideas are right here tagged that need approval and I'm ready to go. I'm ready to then figure out what gets done, what gets approved, and let's say I get approval to write this new brochure, then that's going to actually move under my active projects. This is now becoming an active project, and I can go ahead and tag it as such, where if I want to tag it as a cool project or a critical project, and I'm going to start working on that now. And I'm going to unconnect it from marketing materials. It's now moved into this phase. Now, conversely, once you've finished a project, you can transition that as well. So let me just change the name to New Brochure. This might just belong under the sales section now. So I'm just going to link this to sales, to that sales conference we're doing. And it's no longer an active project, so I can come in here and unlink it. So as I'm completing projects, you can see this belongs, and it's no longer a critical project, it's a completed project. So I can actually I'm just going to untype it now. And then like the tags I showed you, your types are very interesting as well, because you can go in and look anything that is typed as a critical project. It will appear here, or a cool project, or so on and so forth. We actually have a full brain on project management. I'll just open that really quickly, where we have some thought types for project management, which are very cool. And I'll just go into them really quickly so you can see we have project types. And there are templates. If you go into, again, that template section, and you just want to get the project types, the tags and types only, select business and import those in your brain, or do it in a sample brain and see what those look like. But the thing that's nice about that is you can have a completed project type, a green lighted project, a hot project, a stalled project, which has this sort of slow down traffic light on it, a pending project with the little arrows there. So as I'm looking at all my projects, I can see immediately what phase each project is in with a thought type. And of course, here are those thought types as well in this area here. And there's a project thought type, and then all these different subtypes as well. So if any of you are interested in that, again, that's built into the Brain 8. Also happy to share this example brain on project methodology. And I think with that, I'm going to go ahead, unless there's something that I need to cover in my session, Matt, and pass presenter overview, so you can dive even deeper into a few more features that are relevant for going from brainstorming to results.
Great, fantastic. So I'd like to share a few features with you that are built right into the brain. Obviously, Shelley showed us some great examples of how we can use thought types and tags to identify a project, whether it's a stalled project, green light project, etc. And we can move items through basically a business process, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, to make sure that our projects and our tasks get completed on time and follow a specific procedure. I'd like to share with you a few features in one of my personal brains, so a more recreational brain, using some of the same rules of methodology as far as identifying, is this task complete, step 1, step 2, step 3, but using different features within the Brain application to manage and visualize that information. So here I am in my own personal brain. So this is a brain where I keep track of my own hobbies and interests, family activities, projects that I'm working on. And my wife and I really enjoy running 5Ks, 10Ks, little mini triathlons in the summer. And I'm actually taking this up a notch. And this year, as you can see, my 2017 events, this is where I'm mapping everything out. All the different races that I do, I always drop all of this information, and I manage that race right here from within my brain. So just really quickly, you can see we can go to a race I've done many years in the past. It's called the Paddle Portage. It takes place in Madison, Wisconsin. We fly in, we meet some friends, and I'm keeping track of old race results. My notes down below have my race number, packet pickup information. I'm even keeping track of restaurants that we go to and like to try while we're there. We make a big weekend of it, and I manage the entire event right here from the brain. So I'm just starting out with my 2017 events, thinking ahead, and As you can see, I'm bumping it up to a half marathon and then a full marathon a little bit later in the year. And to do that, I actually need to manage my training. And so I'm keeping some nice links to different types of gear that I need to acquire to continue my training through the winter months, different running resources, but most importantly is I have just simply this one thought called marathon training. And down below in the notes box, I'm utilizing the check boxes. The check boxes are, it's actually one of my favorite features within the Brain application. I'll actually bounce around if I can to a couple of different thoughts and show you how I utilize these check boxes. In this case, it's a very linear order. This past weekend, I ran 3.1 miles. That's a 5K. Felt good, felt really comfortable. I'm ready to take the next step. I think I'll be fine all the way up to about 12.4 miles. When I get to 15, notice I've highlighted that in red. That to me is a pretty significant sort of turning point in my training. I really have punched it up when I can comfortably go out and run 15 miles. It's going to be huge. But I'm maintaining and managing my running schedule right here with the check boxes. So this weekend, when I run 6.2 miles, I'll check that off the list. And I'm going to timestamp that as well. So there's a nice little timestamp. I can just click, timestamp that right down there in the notes when that event took place, and I can move forward at any time. I'll be able to keep track of this pretty easily. I'll remember, oh, last week I ran 10, 5, 3, whatever the case may be. But I'll manage all of this right here, and I'll be able to refer back to it from time to time. I'm not going to check anything off the list unless I do the run and I feel comfortable about it. So as time goes on, I'll continue going down this list, and I'll be looking at the calendar as well. Here's a calendar built right into the Brain to make sure that I'm on track, on schedule for getting to my, my main event, which is later in September, that 26.2. So I'm going to uncheck these. This is a real Brain where I'm really managing this content. And of course, I'd like to share with you if I decide, you know, a friend of mine says, hey, it's always good to run a couple of 8-milers before you bump it up to 10. That's pretty significant for a runner to do. Okay, I didn't know that. I'll just simply add a new checkbox as the icon for the checkbox of the notes, and maybe I've got to get in an 8.5. So I add that into the list, and that becomes another week, another event that I'm going to get to check that off before I move forward. Now, I can also, let me remove that, I can also add reminders for myself in the calendar. So the calendar I really, really like to use as just sort of a reminder for an event that's taking place, so it's out of my head into the Brain, and the Brain is going to remind me, hey, you've got a 6.2 to run this weekend or a 10-miler to run. So here I can open up the calendar. Let me give this a little more screen real estate. And for this event, you can see marathon training has one event. I can click and you can see that I ran a 5K. That was the 3.1, ran a 5K on December 10th. So I can also go in and add a new event for this, the current active thought. Anytime you click on that add event in the calendar, you're associating the event with the current active thought. So when you click on it in the calendar, it's going to go to that thought in your Brain. So a 6.2 is actually a 10K. Run a 10K. And I am going to do this on Saturday, the 17th, and I can specify the time, etc. If you're using this for business purposes, there's really a lot of additional features here. So you can even keep track of what percentage it is complete. You can add additional descriptions, which meeting room you're going to be in, etc. Here, I just need a quick reminder that I'm doing a 10K. It's a one-time event. I can say, I can just turn this into a weekly running reminder and have this appear, you know, every Saturday morning or every Friday afternoon, whatever the case may be. In this case, it's a one-time event, December 17th. I'll go ahead and does not repeat, and I want the Brain to remind me. Let's even say the day before. So one day prior to the 17th, the Brain will send me out a reminder, and there it is in my calendar, showing up in my calendar, and I'll be reminded of that particular event. So a great way to set up reminders for individual events or thoughts that need to be focused on right there from within the brain. Now, as I said, I wanted to share with you a few other areas where I use these checkboxes. This is a very linear list in my checkboxes. But I've got other ones, and I've got pins to some hot thoughts here that I'm working on. This is a woodworking project that I'm working on in my spare time. It's building a wooden stand-up paddleboard. I'm very excited about it. And you can see this is really a shopping list down below. It's that simple. When I acquire something, I check it off the list. And in some cases, this is kind of interesting, where I'm going to be purchasing my wood. I've called around some different local lumber yards of who has wood and made a quick note that Bliffert Lumber. Bliffert is actually a thought in my brain. So let me just retype this to show you how I set up this link. So I know it sounds weird, Bliffert, but that's the name of the lumber company. There is a thought I know in my brain. Now, I don't need a direct link from Bliffert Lumber here to my Kahalo 14 paddleboard, but I'd like to know here in my notes that I have a link. So I highlight the name of a thought that I know exists, and I click on this button right here in the notes, and that becomes a nice little link directly to the Bliffert Lumber link. And that's where I've got their phone number, some pricing information about their marine grade plywood, etc. So it's just nice to have a link in the notes section to a specific thought in those rare occasions when I don't need the actual two thoughts linked to one another. Great way to reference other content right there from the notes. And another way to utilize those checklists. Again, this is just a simple shopping list, but you can think of this as tasks that need to be completed for an upcoming project in no particular order. Utilize those checklists to simply check those off as you go. And finally, another feature that I like to utilize specifically for GTD, for getting things done. You know, it's always important to know what you're working on, what's coming up in the future. As Shelley mentioned earlier, having whether it's on the runway or at 10,000 feet, whatever the scale may be or the terminology you're using. So you know what's coming down the line. It's also good to refer back. What has been my focus over the past week, over the past month? And the brain has a fantastic feature for reviewing content that's recently been modified. Now, of course, we can go over to our reports. And if I refresh the reports in your brain, very powerful tool. You can see this particular brain has 3,339 different thoughts. So I can review here and take some time and say, all right, show me all thoughts that have been modified. Here's all thoughts modified within the past month. I could say with all thoughts modified last week, etc. But there's a nice little feature in the brain, and it's quite simply this little clock icon. This is the timeline view in your brain. I can click to see all thoughts that were modified today, yesterday, the day before, etc. So these are all the recent thoughts that I've modified, actually thoughts that I've modified today. And I'm moving back through time, basically, thoughts that were modified last week, last month, etc. We can get back towards Thanksgiving. You can see around Thanksgiving time, I was modifying my Thanksgiving thoughts. Turkey trot, which is a little Thanksgiving Day race that I did with my wife. Pecan pumpkin butter pie. So all my different recipes for Thanksgiving, thoughts that were recently activated and modified within the brain. So I can see where I'm spending my activity. This is great. Again, I'm in a recreational brain right now, so these are sort of where I've been throwing my interests and focus for hobbies in my life. But you can see how obviously this particular feature would be really, really great in a business environment. What have I been working on this past week or this past month? Where have I been spending and focusing most of my time? So a great way to review all of the content that you're focusing on within the brain, either through the reports, which can be highly, highly modified, or really, really quickly by clicking on that timeline view. It's just simply the clock there next to your search box, and finding all thoughts that you've recently modified in your brain in chronological order, so where you've been sort of throwing your focus. Now, with that, the check boxes and timestamp within the notes, the reports, and even the timeline view, These are some really, really great features. You don't need to utilize all of them. You know, Shelley also shared all of the thought types and tags. You can find the utilities or the tools within the brain that work best for you, or a combination of all these that work best for you. But another thing that you might want to check out is, and I've got a nice little sneak peek for you, that everything that Shelley and I have shared with you today is in our release version of the Brain 8. So you can visit www.thebrain.com to download a copy of the Brain 8 and get started building your own brain. But also, while you're there on our homepage, you may notice that we have a beta available of the Brain 9. So the Brain 9 has some fantastic new features, and I'll share a few of those really quickly with you. I'm going to open up my copy of the Brain 9. And once again, I've got business brains in the Brain 9, recreational brains. This is specifically a brain on Volkswagen buses, remodeling and rebuilding Volkswagen buses. But here, once again, you can see right from the start, I'm utilizing the checklist. The checklist feature has been, and the notes in particular, have been greatly enhanced in the Brain 9. So the notes have been streamlined, very, very sleek, quick, and easy to use the notes. I can select something really quickly, and let's say we'll make that a heading, and checking off the list, a little bit of a different look and feel for how content is checked off in your checklist, but all the features are still there. The notes features themselves, again, the layout is much easier to use, but also notice that we make better use of space in the Brain 9. So file attachments will appear in a tabbed interface along with notes on one of the tabs for all of your content. Also, your brains appear in tabs as well, so I can bounce in and out of different brains very quickly. Notice I just switched from my VW brain right here into my eSolutions Consulting brain. I can also open up another copy of eSolutions Consulting in another tab. So the same brain, open twice. Now in this brain, I'll go down into my clients area. So let's say I'm reviewing all of my media and entertainment clients. There's Time Warner. And if you've got multiple monitors, you can drag actually a brain tab from one monitor to the other. So notice I've got the brain open, same brain, eSolutions Consulting, open in two separate windows. I can have them on two separate monitors. In one brain, I'm actually reviewing my clients and their status for some upcoming projects that I'm working on with my clients. And over on the left, I'm actually going to open up my marketing to see how all of my work for the Reach Out ad campaign for my client Time Warner fits in with my marketing budget. And I'm reviewing a few different thoughts over here in my online advertising for my marketing budget, etc., in one frame, whereas a customer in the other. And a few more things to point out really quickly. There are so many features in the Brain 9, but really quickly, I'd just like to point out that we actually have the ability to preview content. So there's nothing in this particular document that's a blank document. Let me see if I can find one with some actual content. So there I'm actually previewing the content right in the interface without ever actually leaving the Brain application. So Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, I can preview those in the content window without ever having to even close the Brain. So some fantastic features available for you. And again, that is the Brain 9 beta. So it is beta software. You can read more about it. There's a link on our homepage at www.thebrain.com. You can read more about the beta, the progress that we're making on the beta, and the new features that are involved by just following the link on our homepage. But I did want to share that with you because we're really excited about it. Some great enhancements, great new features, and we're excited to get it completed as soon as possible to get it out there. So with that, Shelley, I think I've covered everything I want. How about our questions? Do we have any?
Wonderful, yes. We have some really great questions. And just real quick, on the Brain 9, it is a free upgrade to all users who purchased today and, several months ago, and it's free upgrade for those of you that are on the subscription plan as well. So don't wait to purchase, because the Brain 9 is evolving, and we don't have a release date yet, and it's going to be a free update if you do purchase anyway within the last several months as well. And of course, and getting the service plan is wonderful as well, because then you get all these updates, and we're going to be doing lots of point releases. That's the Brain Pro combo for $2.99 as well. But if you just purchase the license, you will still qualify for the upgrade. So just a little bit on that also. There's a lot of releases, so some of you may or may not want to jump on the beta. For the techies, go for it, get a preview. If you're a business manager who needs to get a bunch of approvals to download software, stick with Brain 8. As you can see, I'm on Brain 8, Matt's on Brain 9, both relevant. And of course, our official release is still Brain 8. It's just a little bit on the beta. Lots of chatter on the beta, so real quickly, I will answer a couple questions coming in from Thomas and Mario about if there's a calendar. Calendar's TBD, may not make the first release of the Brain 9. It's, of course, available in the Brain 8 now. It's going to be very wild and different and amazing, so it'll be worth the wait, and it is in the works, and that's all I'm saying on that, and I've probably said more than I'd even write on a discussion board, but, you guys are great, and we're chatting away, so just a little bit of a insider tip there that yes, it's a very cool calendar, but it probably won't make it more than likely won't make the first release. Okay, so back to questions. Thank you all for your questions. We are officially in the Q&A segment, so feel free to get any more crazy or wonderful questions in. First question came from Wim earlier, and there's a couple questions from him on how I copy into the Brain. So what I'd like to cover, because we're talking about templates, is first of all how to import a Brain into an existing Brain, and then also how to copy thoughts. And then you had said, Wim, that it doesn't give you web addresses and everything. Just to be clear, when I copy thoughts from a Brain or import a Brain, I'm getting all the metadata, all the attachments, everything on that thought. So we'll go ahead and cover that. And that might be relevant for all of you who want to copy things from some of these templates we've shown.
Sure, great. So let me take you through a few different options as far as merging Brains, importing content. There's a lot of different features available to you. You can import an Excel spreadsheet properly formatted. You can import a tab delineated list, an outline of a digital book or of a syllabus of a class you're taking. You can also import from different data sources, so files, MMAP files, other mind mapping files can be saved and imported directly into the Brain. There's some great advantages to get that into those types of files into the Brain to really create a no limits mind map, so no restrictions on the number of links and data points you can have.
That's right.
Once it comes
Keep those thoughts
Brain.
going in. There's no limit.
Absolutely.
Test it out. Let us know.
So let me share with you. I think Wim had first asked about importing a Brain that you were sharing. So I also replied back to Wim, and I shared with him a link. The Brain that Shelley was actually demoing today, if I log into thebrain.com and under support, you can go to our application video and templates list. So the shortcut for that is thebrain.com/apps, APPS. That will take you directly to this page of previous webinars that we've held with a lot of different subject matters, topics, and Brain specifically honed into those topics. And here, of course, is a link to a previously recorded Getting Things Done webinar, as we're doing today. We'll probably update this video, but look down below, there is a Brain zip. So this is the Brain that Shelley used on her demo today. You can download this Brain zip, and then from the Brain, you can also view it online.
He's in Brain 8. It's just a template. It's just a brainstorming Brain. So that's if you just want GTD. But if he wants everything I demoed, go up to File, Matt.
Sure.
And I don't know if you want to use a new Brain or whatever, but it's the brainstorming template. It's literally the brainstorming template.
From scratch. Sure.
So but the one that Matt showed you is actually very cool as well, because that's GTD specific. But this one that I demoed at the beginning, the only thing it doesn't have to save space is the wallpaper background, but that has all of the ideas to action as well as the GTD methodology. And I'm glad you clarified that, Matt, so people know to do this.
Great. So yes, I'm going to just name this Brainstorm. You can name it whatever you'd like. And this is a list of some sample brains that we have. You might want to try the business brain, one brain for it all. That's a really massive brain with recreational information as well as business-related information. Here we are in the brainstorming brain. I'll say OK. And you can utilize these brains to use as a sandbox, just to play around with the technology and get familiar, to create your own content, or have it be the starting seed for your own brain, your own content, and manipulate it by deleting what you don't need or editing what you would like to change and focus on your own content. So let's say under thinkers and methodologies, you are also interested in the writings of Leonardo da Vinci. So add da Vinci in.
Cool, I like that.
And start adding your own content. So you're adding in other forward thinkers and data into this brain. And if for whatever reason you feel like, you know, Alex doesn't really sum up everything the way you think about content, this can be deleted or removed. So any of this can be forgotten. I just right-click on a thought to forget that specific thought. Or even change it to reflect your own way of thinking. So principles for outcome-directed thinking, let's say focus on a solution, not a problem. You really call that refer to that as positive thinking. Okay, so I'm going to change the thought name to positive thinking.
And Matt, I'm glad you're covering this because actually, and this could be also in another brain, Mary Anna is asking how do I copy into a brain, but also how do I prune it out? So there is a question on pruning.
Yes, so we can go back and manipulate at any time, anything you do in your brain, whether it's a brain that you imported from us or one that you're creating from scratch. You can always go back, and Shelley and I always like to refer to it as gardening. Do a little bit of gardening and pruning to delete thoughts that you don't need. Let's say I don't need checks and balances, don't impede results. For whatever reason, I'm fine with that. I don't need to know about that. I'm just going to right-click on this thought and select to forget. When you forget a thought in your brain, it's really like throwing it into a recycle bin. The thought is still there, but it hasn't been permanently deleted yet, but it's no longer being visualized in the brain. So it's a two-step process, and that's really to save you from accidentally right-clicking and deleting a thought. Now you can change your preferences so you do go straight to delete. The default is to first forget, and then I go up to my options and open up my forgotten thought list. There's that checks and balances. As you can see, it's still there. It's just grayed out. Now I can select and permanently delete that thought. So two-step process. I can also go into my preferences and go straight to deleting whenever I right-click on a thought. Skip the forget, go straight to delete. That's a setting that you can set up here in your preferences as well. So we can remove content, rename it to make it best fit our needs, and also all of these sample brains, you don't necessarily need to start a new brain. You can open up a brain that you've already started and just click on File and select to import. So to import WIM, getting back to your question, you can actually import another brain zip into a particular brain that you already have. Or another brain could be imported. And again, these other file types, so a mind manager file, free mind file, or even just a folder if you want to take a folder that you have, import that data into the brain, or select from one of our existing template brains. So a lot of different options. And again, we've got some helpful video tutorials. If you have any questions at all, send an email into support@thebrain.com, and we'll point you in the right direction. Tell us the type of data you'd like to import into the brain, and we'll share some thoughts and step-by-step procedures for you.
All right, and we are in the hour. I want to let you know we are going to go into overtime because I see about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions I want to get to.
Great.
Not to mention we still have to cover copying thoughts. So for those of you that have to go on the hour, we certainly want to respect your time limits. This is going to be recorded. Come back and watch the recording. Just fast forward to the end to see these questions. For those of you that can stay, in some ways this is kind of the more interesting, the fun part, because we'll try and get to as many cool questions as we can in the next 10 minutes. So we're going to continue into overtime. Happy if those of you can stay, will stay, great. And if you can't, we understand. Thank you for joining us thus far. Also want to plug our 101 class for those of you that have to go. RD, I see your question, and we will cover it today, even though you can attend the 101 class. But for those of you that do have basic questions that you want demoed, and also building a brain from ground up, because this one's a little bit, this session, we go a little fast just to cover everything on the topic, and it's more almost inspiration than total instruction. So we have this 101 classes every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern time. Matt actually is hosting them now, which is just an amazing treat to have, you know, our Director of Customer Solutions do it. And because the classes are smaller, because they're each week, you can literally get anything you want demoed in the Q&A, and it's building a brain from ground up. So I cannot emphasize those classes enough. They're not just for new users. If you're an existing user and you have a very specific question, pop in towards the end of the class and ask it during Q&A. Again, just a nice resource for you. But for now, we're going to try and do the stuff that we're going to cover as much as we can and take advantage of us, this gathering here. So we're going to go back to Q&A. And so the other half of Mariana's questions was, and I think RD's was copying from one brain to the other, and that also speaks to how do I mass select. So if you could show maybe mass selecting, maybe a group of thoughts from the GTD brain into a brain you might have, because I can see this scenario, like maybe you only want the 5 principles of Alex Osborne's brainstorming in your marketing section. How would I just copy a segment of those thoughts into another brain, Matt?
Great. So there's a few different ways that you can copy thoughts into the brain. You can do it one at a time. If you just have one thought in brain A and you've made a separate brain B for many different reasons, maybe you want to share that brain with another group of colleagues at a later date, or you're going to be publishing that brain online, all features that are available to you with the brain. It certainly can be done. You can right-click on a thought and select simply copy thought, or copy thought URL. So I can copy the local thought URL, go to another thought. I'll do that really quickly. So that's a really basic way. I've copied this Alex Osborne thought. And then let's say from my Laura Bloom brain, I want to get inspired every now and then when I'm doing some woodworking. I've got woodworking inspiration. And I can right-click and select to paste. So I'll paste the thought URL. This is a link back into another thought in another brain right here on my desktop. So I can click and go, it's going to close the current brain I have open and take me directly to a specific thought in this brain. So that's one option that you have to link from thought to thought in different brains that you're using. But let's say I want to copy this entire structure. So I'm going to start on that mass select feature. I can control-click on individual thoughts to add them into my selection box. So I control-clicked on 2 thoughts. If you are on a Mac, this is done with command-click. I'm on a PC today, so I control-click. And I can also control-click on a gate, and that adds everything connected below that specific thought. Or I can go up to, let's say, we'll control-click on, did I get this one? And notice you can control-click in and out, thoughts in and out of the selection box. So control-click on Alex, takes him away. Control-click on him again over here, puts him right back into my selection box. And this is a much more advanced feature. So take your time with utilizing these features within the brain. I'm going to control-click on brainstorming, and then right-click over in the selection box and select to crawl and modify selection. So I'm going to select every child for, we'll say, up to 4 generations away and add those. Now, there's not that much underneath there, so it didn't add that much. But in a larger brain, you think of it as actually selecting this thought and everything below that thought, a branch of thoughts, a grouping of thoughts that you want to move or copy from one brain into another. So there's a lot that I can do with this now. If I want to delete all of these thoughts from this brain, I can right-click to forget the entire selection of thoughts. I can also modify these thoughts. So I can change all of their thought types or apply all of this entire grouping. Say this is a low priority or high priority grouping of thoughts. So a lot that you can do with this mass select feature. In this case, I'm going to copy the selected thoughts. So that simply copies those thoughts onto my clipboard. And I can go ahead and close that grouping now, and I'll jump over into another brain. I had a sample brain open earlier that I was going to demonstrate. This is the My Business brain. This is from the business template of that template list. So let's say for my business, I'm keeping track of inspiration.
And Matt, I'm glad you're writing a thought for inspiration, because actually one of our users had an idea at Clive on, do you have any suggestions or references for capturing ideas on the fly and categorizing them? So maybe we can use that section, inspirations, as how we just get stuff in and then recategorize after even the copied thoughts.
Absolutely.
The question coming in from Clive.
Great, great. So for now, under inspiration, I have all those thoughts from my other brain on the clipboard. I'm just going to right-click and select to paste thoughts. Now, this pastes in everything, the thought types, the tags, the icons that are associated with thoughts, any file attachments, any data, notes or web links that are associated with those thoughts that I copied have been pasted in their entirety here into this brain. So I've gathered all that information from brain A, I've pasted into brain B. So this falls under my business inspiration, how to inspire my marketing directors and employees at my company, and how we're going to stay organized using Osborne's brainstorming rules. So great options for you as far as copying a thought from, or a grouping of thoughts from one brain into another. And
that sort of speaks to RD. You had another question. I want to link another brain that is subject specific. Can you touch on that? Oh, I'm sorry, that's not the question I meant. We'll cover that. That's a separate question. But somebody had asked about sharing portions of the brain or how to share things. Right now, I mean, we do have coming down the line in 9 different access control per thought. We're not there yet. But so what we do, if you're on a team brain or you want to share portions of the brain, I advise you to just copy those thoughts into a new brain. Let's say you have, like for instance, I have my Shelley Haydock brain, but I have a marketing section that I've built out that's amazing. I don't want to give everyone access to the whole brain, so I will just copy all those marketing thoughts into a brain called my team marketing brain, and then I'll share that on the cloud. And oh my goodness, we haven't touched on sharing yet, but before we do, we actually have to get to your questions. That's a whole other thing. Of course, we have cloud sharing and that sort of thing, but utilizing copying can be really good for, I have a huge brain, I want to make it into a smaller brain. Go ahead and take those thoughts you want, copy them into a new brain, and now you've effectively segmented your brain.
And here I'm just creating a new brain without selecting a template. So this is just a blank slate. I'm going to create a new brain from scratch, a single thought, and I right-click in the background to, again, paste those thoughts that I have on the clipboard still from that original brain where I copied. So now I've got all of this, a branch of that much larger brain, just a small section of these. I can sync this to the cloud. So everything that Shelley and I have done today have been on our local machine. So Shelley's working on her local desktop. I'm working on mine. So these brains are basically databases, file structures that are being visualized in the Brain application. But now I've synced this brain to the cloud. And you can see that sync took place really, really quickly. And I'm going to log in. Actually, I'm almost there. So I'm going to log into my cloud account and go to my account page. And this is where I can now share my brain. So this is my idea. It's a quick, simple, small little brain that I created locally. Open it up, and here it is online. So the same capabilities that I have from my desktop as far as adding new thoughts and content, editing down below so I can edit and add notes to individual thoughts and save that information. I can now take this brain and share it with others. So really quickly, I'm going to go into I'm going to go down into my settings. Each brain, as you can see, has its own settings where you can go in. The default when you sync a brain to the cloud, to webbrain.com, those thoughts are private. So they're encrypted, upload, storage, and download. They're secure and safe, but I can change this from private to being an unlisted brain and save those changes. And now back in the brain, I'm really quickly going to right-click on the background and select share. This is where I can get a nice little truncated URL that I can tweet out, or I can send in an email, share with my other colleagues. They will have read-only access now to this brain. So they can go and navigate through my information online. Again, I'm going through some advanced features really, really quickly. Send us a note at support@thebrain.com if you'd like us to break this down for you. But you can share your brains online. You can even take it one step further and upgrade your account to Team Brain services. Team Brain allows you to collaborate. So I can actually share this brain with Shelly to gather her thoughts. And she can actually manipulate, modify information, keep a local copy, and the two of us will be in sync through webbrain.com. So a lot of great features as far as sharing your brain and segmenting a larger brain into a smaller brain that is shared with a larger group.
All right, great. And then back to Clive's question. Have you any suggestions or references for capturing ideas on the fly and then categorizing them to find them for future development? So really, I did a little bit of that earlier, and I don't know, Matt, if you need to go back to another brain or want to stick to this brain. What you can do, like the thought that Matt created called inspiration, you can have, I like to do thoughts. I have a few what I call bucket categories in my brain, inspirations, or I have a thought that I have on things to read, just a basic thought where I can dump a bunch of stuff. And then once the thought's there, you can always add a thought type or reconnect it to another area. So you can have these sort of buckets for adding things, and then you can reconnect it under its relevant department or project. So Matt, I don't know if you have any quick examples of that process. I know that's sort of a longer question, but it does speak to information architecture.
And we actually have an entire webinar that's all about brainstorming. Again, go visit that apps, thebrain.com/apps. We've got an entire webinar that's all about self-discovery and brainstorming within the brains, something that I like to do from time to time if I'm just flushing out some quick ideas. One of the features that I like to utilize is the semicolon. So let's say I'm thinking of just some new business ideas that I have. I would like to start some type of side business. I don't know what that is. Maybe I want to develop apps. Maybe I want to open a restaurant or a cafe. Maybe I want to buy a food truck. Now, no judgment. Again, remember, these are just random ideas. We talked earlier about, first get them in there and then sit down and start flushing out what's going to work, what isn't going to work. And so I'm utilizing the semicolon. So I'm just creating just free-flowing thoughts. I create a semicolon any time I want a new thought. Maybe I also want to build a dog park. So some random thoughts and click the check. That semicolon allowed me to create individual thoughts at one time. From here, I can go through and start saying, all right, phase one, what goes into building a dog park? First, I need to maybe buy the land, talk to local government about regulations and where these places could be. Maybe I want to buy an old warehouse for a doggy daycare, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I'll just start entering some information and following up on that later. Now, I could also do this down in the notes. I could create a new document, save that document into the brain. So a lot of different ways I can get it into the brain. Personally, and I think Shelly would agree, it's always nice to have an individual thought for all of the different ideas at first, because
if an idea is a big project, I'll use a thought. If an idea is like talk to Brigitte or call Matt at 3 p.m., then I use a note. So I sort of use my notes for more the smaller, what David Allen would call the runway items, the little to-do lists for my notes, and then the bigger projects, things that are going to require a lot of communication or thinking, I'll create a thought for. Now, that's just my process. This is a general guideline. Everyone's different.
Sure, absolutely. But the point is really to get it into the brain. And it's also important to point out that all of the content, whether you're putting it in the notes, let's say when we're talking to Shelly, would Shelly rather see a dog daycare or cat care facility in her neighborhood, etc. So,
you know what? Let's do both. Let's have some peace.
There you go. And so Shelley likes both. And I'll timestamp that. So I gathered some information from Shelley. I stored it right there in my brain. What I'd like to point out is that all of this is indexed and being searched is searchable from within the brain. Any type of text-based content that goes into the brain. So when I do a search for Shelley, so I see there I've got a thought called Talk to Shelley. I'll click on the search.
Do I want to see what's in here? Oh, I guess it's a new brain, so we're good.
It is a new brain, but notice that Shelley also shows up in, I've got some web links that point to Shelley's posts on no limit mind mapping. So,
okay, right.
And I might want to refer back to that. Now, Shelley, you referred in some of your early writings about no limits. Let's not limit ourselves to just doggy daycare. Let's have doggy and cat daycare. So I can utilize all that information that's going into my brain for future conversations or just future knowledge. It's all archived and accessible. So regardless of how you decide to gather your information, in a document in your brain, in the notes, individual thoughts, you're always going to be able to find that at a later date.
And I love that you touched on the search because it is a very powerful search, and that the last thing in that brainstorming brain that we didn't talk about is inspirational warehousing. When my projects are done, you still want them in the brain. You don't need to delete them. There's no limit on the number of thoughts. That's where actually the thought, you could create a thought called lessons learned. I actually learned that one from the military. We do a lot of work for government and military intelligence. They have all kinds of brains on lessons learned. So when I've done a project, and keep in mind, sometimes projects aren't successful. So even the unsuccessful projects, put them in lessons learned, and you can learn from not only, what went right, but, what did we do wrong? What can we improve on? So there's another idea for you guys in terms of categorization and, project warehousing type thing. Now, just to go in a completely different direction, and we have a couple more questions here. We're going to stay the course and get to a few more. How are you doing for time, Matt?
Oh, we're doing great.
Okay, great. So Mariana, and I don't want to get too bogged down in this, but she asked, can you demo how to import from a spreadsheet or from a literature review, say EndNote? So I'll let you speak to spreadsheet, and then actually then she said that she saw importing from a docx or some other stuff. So
okay, great. Yeah, I've got some examples of those. Let's see. I believe as far as I think I have a thought. These are a collection of different types of files that can be imported into the brain. So I've got some sample Mind Manager files, free mind files, etc. But you specifically mentioned importing from an Excel spreadsheet. So here's a sample Excel spreadsheet. And the key to an Excel spreadsheet is the formatting. And so notice I've opened this up, and every time we drop down and over one, we're creating a new branch, a new sub-thought. So by selecting this content, right-click and select copy. So I've got this content on my clipboard. I'll have a thought, as you're about to see, called green people with two child thoughts, people that are alive, people that are deceased, and below that, other subcategories. There's some special characters that you can add in your Excel spreadsheet. So notice some of these have a little dash. Some have some web links. Look at William Morris. It says William Morris, then he's got the pipe symbol. These are all features, little coding bits that can be utilized to implement features when it's pasted into the brain. So
and
take
Matt,
a look there at William Morris.
Just to interject, since you're kind of talking about this, Bob had a question that's related to Mariana's, but slightly different, creating an outline list from a cascade of thoughts. So that's sort of what you did. So basically, you've done it into a spreadsheet. Oh, no, you're importing into a spreadsheet or out of a spreadsheet. And Bob's asking how, if I have some thoughts, how can I take those, put them into a list as a export. So maybe show the other direction as well.
Yeah, we'll do both. So I'm going to copy this information. Actually, I just copied that on my clipboard. Now I'm going to go over to the brain. And please, Marianne or anyone that's interested, if you'd like to see an actual sample document, I'll email these spreadsheets to you. I'd be happy to share some samples that I have, just so you can take a look at the formatting and then utilize that information for your own data to format it and get those imports done into the brain. So let's say under Shelley, Shelley's going to, I'm going to paste this outline. Now notice the brain can see that I have content on my clipboard that is in an outline format. So typically when you right click on the background, you don't see this. It only appears when the brain knows, oh, he's got an outline, and are you sure you want to paste this in? Yes, I am. So here we are. We've got green people, people that are alive and people that are deceased. There's William Morris. William Morris has in the notes a famous quote by William Morris: "Have nothing in your house that is neither beautiful nor useful, And the link to his Wikipedia page, it looks like, and then that pipe symbol where it said favorite, that actually shows up as the thought label. So when I mouse over William Morris, I see that he's one of my famous inspirational people that believed in simple living, so to speak. So an early minimalist. So those are some of the features, again, for importing from a spreadsheet. You can also import from just a basic text file with tabs or a Word document. Again, I mentioned earlier an outline or something of that nature. Now, exporting. We've got this information. We want to get it out into the list. Maybe you're turning in a paper or a report to your boss. They don't use the brain, but they want to see the structure of the data that you've gathered. So going the opposite direction, out of the brain, I'm going to control-click on green people, and I'll just do this real quick using some of the features we looked at earlier. I right-click in the background. I'm going to crawl and modify my selection. So all child thoughts for, say, 5 generations away. We'll say OK. Oh, let's go deeper. Right-click, crawl and modify all child thoughts for 12 generations away. That should add some more. I guess there's not that much in here. So that's fine. We'll copy this. I right-click. I can copy as text outline or copy as text outline with the notes. There's not a whole lot of notes, so we'll just say copy as text outline. And I'll go now into Word. There's Word. Right-click on the background and paste. So there's from the brain. I've copied that, and again, you see that tab delineated list. So I've got a nice, neat little outline, and obviously the larger amount of content I have in the selection box, the larger my list is going to be. So we can easily go in both directions, and if you're really, really advanced, you can actually export the content of the brain into XML. Again, a much more advanced feature. You have to know a lot about XML. I'll show you really quickly what that looks like. If you don't know much about XML, it can be very daunting. So copy selected thoughts. But if you are a programmer and you know about XML, then this is going to really excite you because the possibilities suddenly become endless. Where did my file open? Oh, there it is. Sorry, I opened on another monitor. Let's move that. Oh, it's opening way over to the right. So let's open, I'll just go back into Word. So I've got now the XML on my clipboard. I'll select all and paste. So there's the XML coding, all of the data behind the scenes. So colors, link types, thought types, documents, etc. Again, if you want to know more about the XML exporting from the brain, to bring brain information into other data sets, and you can import from XML as well. So take some type of database, proper formatting, and get that visualized in the brain. It's fantastic. A much more advanced feature, but definitely a possibility for you. Send a note. Make it specific to me, matt@thebrain.com, and I'll send you some documentation on XML importing and exporting that's really exciting.
Yes, we offer free tech support to all users, so there have been a few advanced questions that we won't have time to get to. Do write into support, and we're happy to set up a one-on-one demo with you, as well as RD mentioned earlier about joining the 101 classes, where we can get some more stuff. I think we covered a lot of ground, so we're going to end today's session, but I do want all of you on today's call who have more questions to write into support or give us a call or join us for the Brain 101. And with that, I think we're going to close the session. Matt, did you have any final words of wisdom? for our
well, I just want to thank sure.
brainstormers and GTDers here on the call, and those of us who stuck with us an extra 30 minutes past the hour.
Yeah.
You know,
I definitely want to thank everyone for joining us.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks for joining us. Sort of an exciting array of possibilities that we shared today. So we threw a lot of information out there, and just a final reminder, you can always contact us at support, and we're happy to hone in on your questions, your specific features or needs within the Brain, and work with you. Always happy to hear from you at support@thebrain.com.
All right, great. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on a future Brain Technologies event. And follow us on Twitter or sign up for the newsletter or go to our homepage. We have lots of really cool events coming up, more than likely in the new year, so hope to see you on a future event or on a Brain 101. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.
Thanks everyone.